Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday the 9th of February. So, as another month slides away, let's have a look at what's, there's no point looking at what's coming out today because there isn't anything. We can have a brief look at the news overnight, or the key news events that have occurred. We can have a look at this week ahead a little bit. This is quite important. Core retail sales tomorrow. Again, it's all delayed data, isn't it? So this is 27 days delayed. So it's very, very soft data once it's so late. So that's tomorrow. We've got non-farm payrolls. So it's 4 or 5 days delayed now, or will be 5 days delayed. There we go. So it's not quite so bad. That's a bit more relevant to current conditions then. Side of that, I'm just looking here elsewhere. Inflation data coming out there on Friday. That's all late. It's only delayed by 2 days now. Then, so all 2 days. That's okay. So that's only just late. So okay, this week, so we could find ourselves sitting on our hands. We've got a Japanese bank holiday on Wednesday, then we've got followed by non-farm payrolls later. It could be a quiet morning. Okay, certainly today we've got nothing there. We do have quite a few speakers actually, which are not listed on there. Now, what these guys are speaking about, I don't know. When we get a lot of Bank of England speakers normally together, it's often a meeting with government, but that doesn't appear to be the case here. So it's quite a few ECB speakers coming through this afternoon. That's from about 4 o'clock then. Okay. Other news: in Japan, there was the new Japanese Prime Minister elected, so that's all done and sorted. And we'll look at the effects of that in a moment. However, let's look at these markets, starting off with the euro. The euro's broken the or turned the corner, possibly. We'll see. But it's back above its monthly pivot. I'll get the right days in there in a moment. The monthly pivot's back above the monthly pivot there. It's been looking ugly. I mean, last week, to be fair, it barely did anything for most of the week. It's popped out this week a little bit more. It started going on Friday, and it's starting to run up there. It has run into its 4-hourly 50 there, so we just need to be a bit careful before just thinking, well, this is it then for the upside. I still think there's risk to the downside. There's the hourly 200 there. So we just got to be a bit careful with this morning. One thing I would say is it's moved quite a distance through the Asian session there, and generally when we've seen such a move, it tends to slow down in the morning session. We might get a little bit of continuation before it dips and consolidates again. So a bit of an ugly case. The pound still under its monthly pivot at the moment, looking weaker than some. It's a bit messy here on the 4-hourly. I say messy. On the 4-hourly, it looks a little bit tidier in terms of what's going on here, and maybe a breakdown below these 4-hourly lows would be a signal of a bit more of a swing to the downside. Now the S1's in a nice place on the weeklies there, so that'd be quite a good target. So we'll see what happens here. There'll be a bit of divergence over the top here. A break below the daily pivot here would be quite key. How that corresponds, that's sitting at 135.80. How does that relate to? Well, there's nothing there. So that would be the absolute the turning point or confirmation of the turning point. With divergence wise, it's only just a fraction away, but we could get support off that pivot. So a break of that pivot would be more interesting. Okay, so there's a possibility. US dollar yen. Well, the yen, I was talking about this last week when it was sort of riding into the pushing back up here. It's getting back into this zone of possible intervention and discussion of intervention. Obviously we had the elections which softened it. Now are we going to see a bit more of a reversal here? It's a bearish engulfing that sort of sat through there yesterday evening. Not really going one way or the other at the moment. It's just quite ugly in terms of the actual price action here. You look at it on the shorter time frame, it's ticked all the boxes here in terms of range, and it might be another day before we can try and see if we're going to get a continuation to the downside. But it had been pretty convincing. This rally had been doing pretty well up to the end of last week. But this is certainly an area, if it was to turn back here and start pushing up there, we've just got to be careful. I say be careful, be aware of intervention stepping in, which is okay if you're already short in it, but it's getting into it first. Anyway, Australian dollar has become quite a mess here now. It's consolidating in this phase. It was at some point it's going to maybe move out. It's last week wasn't the nicest of weeks in terms of its price action here either. Long periods of consolidation. I mean, these are 4-hourly bars, so you can see it's going pretty sideways for quite a lot of the time there. If you're looking to get into trades, it's not necessarily yielding much. Again, here we're into a bit of a divergence, sort of sitting in this price action. I don't particularly want to take a short on it at this stage. Certainly not at this stage, I wouldn't. But I'm just looking at the low between the two highs would be the sort of break point and the confirmation that, well, that we're getting more softening. We have got the daily pivot below. We haven't hit an R1. There's a possibility for that to give us a trade. It's possibly not the nicest because it's had some decent movements. Overall picture from the end of last week was positive. Right, Canadian dollar. I was hoping that we were going to see a lot of action here. Canadian dollar might be the mover. We're looking at what happened on Friday. It didn't quite end up as a key reversal bar there, but certainly made some inroads. And you look at the price action now. Again, this is 4-hourly buy. You see last week it really didn't do a great deal. Slow movements, not particularly volatile. As it sits at the moment, it looks like it's got a bit of potential continuation to the downside in the short term here. But I'm looking at the 4-hourly. Are we going to see a bit of a rollover? If we are, I'd like to see it below last week's pivot there. Maybe as a bit of a trigger for something more. We'll see how it develops. But you can see on the dailies here to run back towards those lows would be quite nice. So it needs to break below these areas here to give us a starter. So it's possible swing sort of side of things. New Zealand dollar, not interested in that. US dollar, Swissy, not really interested in these markets. This one's a bit more, or has a bit more potential. Obviously last month it came off pretty sharply there, caught the bounce like most things did. It's a key area it ran into. But last week it's again flat, and this is the problem with this pairing. To catch some of these lovely moves that you get, they're quite rare amongst the in terms of time. 10% of the time they're probably moving in a decent solid move. The rest of the time they're spending pretty sideward. Okay, so nothing there at the moment. Right, let's run through here into gold and look at what's going on here. So gold's recovering and is still within this sort of more logical trend line as it, or channel that I've got here. It's a regression channel basically. A smoother move from its original, or smoother trend that sort of fitted there. It's the average, if you like. So yeah, I mean, taking away this extreme sort of action either side here, it's really just slowly plodding its way up there, trying to get into a trade. Well, break of the highs here could be a possibility. So it's last week's high there. Break of that would be a confirmed higher low and a possible continuation. Got to be a bit careful because it's putting in a bit of a Gartley pattern, which may only be one Fibonacci number higher before it could roll over. So you've got to be a bit careful with this. Right. Okay. I will look at silver. That's up nearly 4%, well 3.4% today. But this is quite a bit slower. But again, decent reversal sort of candle. A bit of a hammer there on Friday, pushing up there. Right, but slow. But a bit more like it again now. Okay, so oil down 1% this morning. This is with the sort of tensions with Iran, the US, and etc. going on. This had built itself up reasonably well, but again, it's just now has been consolidating over the last week. Not a particularly pretty picture. Trying to get into it. I want trends like this to be running through the week, so you sort of can get into retracements potentially. But this sort of action is quite difficult. You think you're into a trend and something's happening, and then it's just reversing. Quite an ugly market. I haven't traded it for ages, and won't be at this moment. S&Ps, it's one of those the markets that you have to give up sometimes and come back to at a later stage. S&Ps, well, quite a key reversal bar there sitting on Friday. Whether we can see a continuation as momentum, we'll have to wait and see. It really is a pig's ear. I mean, I remember saying earlier part of last week, it had shown signs of weakness there. It did manage to rally. In fact, it ended the week quite ugly relative, although I say relatively, ended the week slightly up on the open, but it was all down to Friday pushing up there. Today, goodness knows, it's ranging basically. You see it on the bigger scale here, so it's quite a messy old range. Maybe some intraday shots to be had, but at the moment, short term looks bullish, bull flag, but we'll see how that develops. It's in a bit of nowhere at the moment. Okay, FTSE. Another market is sort of not far from all-time highs here. You don't really want to be shorting this. Don't particularly want to be taking a long necessarily on it. It is a bit of a bull flag there as well. It might follow suit here, run up towards the R1, maybe even the R2. But whether we'll get the same sort of range as we saw on Friday is another thing. But it certainly looks erring on that sort of more bullish side. Okay, and finally the DAX here. Quite ugly again. Quite a key reversal came through there. Had some nice overall movements during the week, a little bit there to the downside. If you could get on them quick enough, they were there. But a bit of a reversal at the moment. I mean, this too might follow suit. When you look at the bigger picture here, it really has become a mess away from the highs. So all this consolidation around the highs, away from the highs, is not particularly the best of signals. Just as when we get consolidation and away from the absolute low, we don't get a continuation. Well, this makes the continuation less probable. Anyway, we'll see. Right, I shall leave you there. I wish you a great day's trading, and I'll catch you in the morning. Bye for now.